As we mentioned earlier, two prominent former Arizona Republican lawmakers are endorsing Joe Biden for president. The state could also hold the key to which party controls the U.S. Senate. This week, former Senator Jeff Flake and former Congressman Jim Colby joined a growing list of conservatives opposing President Trump's re-election bid. Arizona has been considered reliably red in the past, but our CBS News Battleground Tracker says the race there is now a toss-up. President Trump won Arizona by less than 4 percentage points in 2016. He's visited the state 4 times so far this year. His most recent trip there was just last week to the city of Yuma. Jim Nintzel joins me now from Tucson, Arizona. He's the executive editor of Tucson Weekly. Hello, Jim. Thanks very much for joining us. Let's first talk about the composition of the electorate there. What demographic changes have taken place in Arizona in just the past few years?
Well, what you've seen is before Republicans had a pretty strong hold on the state in terms of voter registration, that has definitely shifted. You've seen Democrats really starting to catch up, as well as independents, over the course of the Trump administration. And you're also seeing the state move much more purple. In 2018, Senator Flake stepped down. We had a race for that seat, and Kyrsten Sinema actually defeated Martha Mcsally in that race. Martha Mcsally ended up going on to the Senate because she was appointed to fill out the rest of John McCain's term. But she was the first Republican to lose a Senate seat in Arizona in 30 years. We also saw Democrats capture a number of statewide seats that they had not held in more than a decade. So you're great. And I think a lot of this has to do with Donald Trump being elected president. I suspect if Hillary Clinton had been elected president, you would not have seen the Democrats make the gains that they've made in Arizona.
Interesting. Well, Senator Mcsally now trails her Democratic challenger, Mark Kelly, by double digits, according to a recent poll from Emerson College. What are the big issues at play in that race?
I think what you're seeing from Martha Mcsally, as we saw in that interview you just had with her, she's really focused on some of Mark Kelly's business connections in China, as well as the whole question of whether or not Senator Kelly would lead to a flip of the U.S. Senate and put the Democrats in charge. And I think she's holding herself up as the way that Republicans can hold on to the U.S. Senate. Conversely, on the other side, what Mark Kelly's really campaigning on is talking about health care. That was a real weak point for Martha Mcsally in her 2018 run. Even she conceded that she was getting killed on the whole question of pre-existing conditions because of her multiple votes to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And you're seeing Mark Kelly basically talk about a lack of leadership at the national level, particularly in regards to how the COVID pandemic has played out in the United States.
So speaking of which, Arizona's coronavirus cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have all actually decreased since peaking in July. How has Governor Doug Ducey managed the crisis, and what's been the reaction from residents on his response?
I think when the pandemic first hit, Governor Ducey eventually, at the end of March, called for a stay-at-home order. He kept that in place through all of April, lifted it in mid-May, and that's, as you look at that chart on the screen there, that's when you really saw the numbers start to take off in Arizona. Arizona became one of the biggest hotspots in the country, and that led to Governor Ducey coming out and finally closing down more businesses. He closed down nightclubs and gyms and theaters and water parks. He also allowed local authorities to enact regulations requiring people to wear masks when out in public. He himself had not been a big proponent of wearing masks until these cases got out of control. He has not established a statewide mask mandate, but he has encouraged local authorities to do it. That seems to have helped a lot in bringing down the numbers. We had a real problem with younger people going out to nightclubs and bars and just congregating in a lot of places, and we saw a lot of spread of the virus among that particular demographic as they basically resumed their old ways. And so closing down those bars and nightclubs and such, I think has led to some of this decrease. We're still at relatively high numbers, basically back to where we were in late May. But there's certainly concern. The schools remain closed here. The community spread is high enough that it's unsafe for the businesses that have been closed to reopen. A lot of eyes on these numbers, waiting for them to go down. There's a number of metrics that have been set up that would allow schools to reopen and would allow these businesses to reopen. But in very few counties have those metrics actually been hit.
Well, before we let you go, Jim, I want to ask you about immigration. How has the president's hardline stance on immigration played in Arizona, which is, of course, a border state?
I think it's one of those things that is split from, depending on where you come from politically. You have people who feel like the wall is a giant waste of money because of the terrain itself presents a barrier. And then there are people who are very enthusiastic about the construction of the wall. We've had prisons here, private prisons, holding immigrants, where you've had outbreaks of coronavirus that have been infecting nearly half the staff at some of them. So there's definitely some issues with what's going on with the detainees here in Arizona. And I think, what we're seeing is a very close presidential race. Joe Biden's actually leading President Trump in Arizona by about 4 points. He won it by about 3 points. So there's a bit of a drop there. But Arizona has not voted for a Democrat for president since Bill Clinton in 1996. And that was the first time since Harry Truman. So Joe Biden certainly has his work cut out for him here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that reason, we are going to be watching your state ever so closely as the election nears. Jim Nintzel for us. Jim, thank you very much. Great to see you again.